It's Friday, December 27th, 2024. Back for what will probably be a little annual thing, if I have my way, where I am welcoming back to the show. All right, now I'm going to try to rattle this off in one shot. I have no notes. I'm not working from anything, as usual. I am welcoming back photographer, content creator, voiceover artist, actor, model, content creator, and podcast host. Right? That's everything.
Said that twice, but it's all good.
Did I? Okay, well, that's because you're so good at it. Yes, there's Mr. Ant Pruitt.
Nice
Nice
save.
Whose work? Yeah, see, you got to think on your feet a little bit. Whose work you can find over at antpruitt.com, including the podcast that he does on generally. Well, it's been on a week. No, it's a weekly schedule. I shouldn't say it like that. No, it's on a weekly schedule. Sometimes he's on his own. Sometimes not. Oh, yeah, I forgot the last one.
Weekly, unless something.
I forgot one. Pedicure enthusiast, Ant Pruitt from antpruitt.com. So welcome back, Ant. That was it.
What's up, man?
One more.
How you be, sir?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Unbelievable as always. Just got back from my pedicure. So yeah, I'm good.
Excellent. Yeah,
You don't get pedicures, man?
No. I take care of my... If you were to see a picture of my left foot, you would swear it was like a makeup test from Frankenstein. I don't know why. I don't think I'm particularly hard on my feet, and yet my left foot in particular is a battlefield. Partially because I had this is fascinating for the audience. You'll love this medical stuff. I had a ingrown toenail when I was younger that I ignored until it was about to become blood poisoning. And then I got up and fell down because I couldn't walk. And they were like, yeah, moron. You shouldn't ignore when there's stuff coming out of your toe.
Right.
So they had to, basically put a needle into my toe for about 10 minutes of this stuff they had to put in. And then they cut the sides off and chemically burned the sides of the toe. So now it can't grow on the sides. So that's just the big toe.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. It's and then I ripped the toenail off about 2 years ago, and that's just now coming back because I caught it on something and it just popped off.
Yeah.
And that was after I'd massacred both of my big toes by trying to wear those Vibram 5 Fingers sneakers, a size too small, and thinking that the pain was just me adjusting to it. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Gosh, dude. You do not take care of your feet is what it sounds like.
Well, but I'm not vengeful against them. It's not intentional. My feet are like fire. I somehow am around when things go wrong. I'm not trying to do these things. They just happen. So I don't know. I don't know. But I do actually, though, have like one of those big toenail files. And I do kind of keep an eye on the nails and keep them, reasonable and that type of thing. So I try to maintain, it's kind of like if you had an old boat and the barnacles and the rust are eating away at it, but you still kind of try to scrape them off. It's kind of that type of Sisyphean thing, pushing the rock up the hill or whatever it is. It's that.
At least you're trying. I'll give you that. At least you're trying. I don't care. I hate when I hear that people are like totally negligent about that. And granted, my for me, and I know this got nothing to do with this show, but for me, it's my former athletic days. And, we were adamant about you have to take care of your hands, you have to take care of your feet. And that it makes a huge difference, because that was your quote unquote money makers, and it just never left. And I'm glad it never left because I've done hand modeling here and there too. So
the interesting thing is, because I have no athletic ability, anybody who saw me would know that right away. But so I had none of the sports background. But interestingly, because as far as I'm aware, no men in my family ever took care of any of that stuff. I never saw my father or any other male figure that were doing anything with their nails of any kind. So I never really even thought about it. I grew up thinking, taking care of your nails is something women do. It was just because that's what I saw. Yeah. So not in any negative way, just it wasn't something that ever occurred to me to outside of, cutting your nails type of thing.
Right.
And then I was watching, the first time I really saw a male figure who was talking about, no, you have to take care of this stuff, was of all people, Bernie Mac on his show at one point is showing himself getting all of his stuff done. And he's like, oh, no, you have to take care of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Huh. Okay. Because I love Bernie Mac. So I'm like, all right, well, if he says so, then his nails
angry
look great,
black comedian getting his shit taken care of. Yeah, that's real talk.
It was the first time I'd ever really seen anything like that. So, but yeah, so I don't have witch's nails or anything raggedy, so I'm okay. But
thank goodness. I was going to have Sam send for help.
Oh yeah, Sam says hi, by the way. Yeah.
Hello, Miss Sam. Hope she's doing all right.
She is, yes, and her nails are much better taken care of than mine. She pays attention to stuff. So she's also in better shape than I am. So she also goes to the gym. So she's clearly in many ways taking care of herself better than me.
Hey, bro, let me tell you this straight up. And this is with no disrespect, but yeah, you definitely overachieved. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Oh, I know that. I know that. That's listen, there are a few people in my life who have not made that clear either very directly or subtly, that have kind of looked at me, and I'm like, and I just do the shrug thing, like, oh,
yeah, you see.
So yeah, I don't know, I don't get it either. But you know what? You don't complain when you have a good thing. Just shut up.
Yeah, you just roll with it, bro.
All of this, of course, relating to what we're talking about tonight. Not that I care. Anybody's listening to the show long enough knows that there really is no general organization to it. So I don't care. It's fine. Yeah, I don't care. But the plan with this was that we did this last year. After Adobe Max had come and gone, we did a little kind of regroup on it to share our thoughts on it. And a couple things different this year. Well, really the main thing being that it's in Miami, or was in Miami. And next year, I guess, is it Tokyo? Is that what they said, right? Tokyo?
I don't remember. Dang it. God,
I think
hope
so.
It's not Tokyo. Jeez.
I could swear. Hold on. I'll check. Hold on. I will harness the power of the internet. Remember. Let's see. Okay, well, no, I guess I should actually put the word Max if I just put Adobe 2025 and getting all kinds of stuff. Let's see. It is... Oh, no, it looks like it is... Oh, it doesn't say. Where does it tell you when the next one is? I could have sworn...
They do a couple different iterations of Max, though, because they'll have
maybe it's that.
London. Yeah.
Maybe it's that. Maybe they're just having one... Oh, no, here it is. It's LA. No, it says right here. LA, October 20th through the 30th, 2025. Okay, good. Yeah, so maybe it is just that they were doing a version of it. Okay, because I was going to say, I know I ain't making it to Tokyo, so...
it's like CES. You have CES every year in Vegas, but there's also a CES Asia that happens too.
Are you by any chance going to CES this year? I already know the answer.
I am, sir. I am. I got my creds and got to finally work out my map out my plan and so forth, far as, how I'm going to run around and how I'm not going to run around, and, because it's a grind, but if you plan ahead, you're not going to wear yourself out. It's just plan ahead. That's all I try to tell people.
I went once and I realized I never need to go again.
Oh, really?
Just too many people for me. It's too crowded.
Okay.
And I know you can kind of get, well, there's two reasons. Honestly, there's two reasons. One is the amount of people. It's the same reason that my wife and I stopped going to comic conventions. It's just too many people at the
Yeah.
stuff you actually want to see for the most part.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
secondary part, honestly, for me was I looked around and I'm like, this stuff is neat, but what am I really getting out of it? That's where you and I differ. I mean, you can write about it. You have a completely different purpose, but it was neat to do once. I'm glad I did it once. And I don't think I can really see myself ever needing to go through the expense and the effort to do it again. I'm not going to say never, but I don't know why I would. But I'm also not a writer and I don't cover that much stuff.
Yeah, I don't see why consumers would go there either. It's a trade show. It's flat out consumer electronics and something. It's got some long fancy name or whatever, but it says trade show. That's what it is. You can't go there to shop, unless you're going somewhere to shop off of the campus of the convention center or whatever. But if you're going to the convention center where CES is, or going to one of the other casinos where CES is, you're not shopping. You're literally just going there to look. And you could have done that on your phone, and saved yourself hundreds or thousands of dollars in travel and lodging. But no, I never.
Fortunately, I didn't pay for it, so I lucked out. I actually went for work because that was when there was a bunch of new cellular things that were coming in. At that time, I was running the cell phone program for the job I was at, so I was looking into like public safety stuff with cellular and that type of thing, which was interesting. There were interesting things, but I realized, outside of that, it's just not something. You're right. It's not something most people should need to go to. But it was, I will say, a neat experience once just to see that type of setup.
Don't get me wrong. The curved screen that LG had out 10 years ago, seeing it on TV is one thing. Seeing it on the internet is a little YouTube video or something in your social media feed. Yeah, that's another thing. I saw that in person. That freaking blew my mind back then. But most consumers are not going to care about seeing that kind of stuff. Not on day one like that. They can wait.
Yeah, it's definitely for a specific type of audiences and somebody, and I don't know what it's like now because consumer electronics has changed quite a bit too. So yeah, when you're going there and there's a huge TV, you're right. You don't get the sense of scale from seeing it on a computer monitor. But there is, when you're there is this weird energy to it, but it's almost an anxiety type of energy. That's how it felt to me, because it's just everybody's so vying for attention. It's weird. Yeah. So again, it was an interesting thing to do once. And the only other kind of neat thing was I happened to be staying at the same hotel that Yogi Berra was there when he was still alive. And he just started walking by, and I'm like, I know who that is. It's one of those rare moments. Like, Yankee.
Good for you.
It was neat. Yeah, and that was. I told my dad I saw Yogi Berra. He was thrilled. So for that, it was worth it. Everything else,
that's awesome.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, outside of CES, Adobe Max is a creativity conference that Adobe holds annually, and it is basically a place for creators to get together. In case you don't know what it is, I'm just explaining it for everybody who might not know what Max is. People come together. They tend to talk about what their kind of upcoming initiatives for the year are. They spotlight different parts of their products that they're improving. It's really broken up. The three main parts that we're going to be talking about are the keynotes. Now, in between those keynotes are learning sessions where they have professionals, trainers that you can go and for whatever your particular product is, because they have a whole suite of products. And you can go and you can collaborate and network with others, and you can take not courses, but you can take trainings on new features, basics, all that type of stuff. Awesome thing to do if you can ever do it. If you're a creative professional or a creative of any kind, if you can ever do it at least once. It's fantastic.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, it's, as we said last time, but worth reiterating, there is something that is really special about being in a place that is 95% creators. People who are artists and creators who are just trying to figure out the best way to do the things they enjoy doing. There's so few things that are specifically aimed at that that
Hmm.
it's what makes it special. So we started off as they do every year, and we get this big keynote, which is basically most of the higher level executives. I think I don't know the entire corporate structure, but most of the big hitters come out and they kind of go through and I would call it basically a repetition of the mission of Adobe, and they start to do little previews of stuff. So I'm going to turn this part over to you. I have the notes, but what were your impressions out of the first day keynote? You know, the kind of the opening keynote. What were your takeaways from it, or how did you feel about it?
That's the only one that I really watched. I didn't get into the inspiration ones because they just didn't make me curious like they normally do in the past. And I think part of it is because of how day one keynote went for me. As you said, they always start out with some of the executives. Of course, they start with Mr. Narayan, Shantanu Narayan, the CEO, who's fine on stage. I've never had an issue with him. He does a decent job, except this particular instance, he and the rest of his colleagues, they all really dove into that teleprompter. And I mean, I know that these folks rehearse these speeches or presentations, if you will. I know that for a fact. But man, this really felt like they were just reading a screen and reading the same dadgum script and pounding it home and repeating themselves. That first 20 minutes of it was long, just long. AI this, AI, and we're concerned. We know you're concerned, and AI, and yes, it's great, and we're concerned, and we know you're concerned. It seems like they just kept repeating that over and over and over. I'm like, okay, we heard you, you know, and then some of them, I just don't think they were great presenters. I can't think of the lady's name. No disrespect to her, but she just didn't seem naturally fit for the stage. And I remember sitting there thinking, dang, where's Scott Belsky? Not that he's like some prolific speaker or anything like that, but he seems comfortable up there, you know? And it didn't always seem like he was just reading a teleprompter. It was a little weird. Um, and I thought about you in this because I felt like I was having an get off my lawn moment. Felt like I was, damn, I must be getting old because I'm watching this shit here. And where's Belsky? Where's Scott Belsky? He would have done a little better job here. Or where's Terry White? Or where's Jason Levine? You know, and
Oh, that was until Terry White showed up. That
yeah,
my thought before Terry White finally walked out, which they waited way too long,
yeah, he was the
was
last freaking one.
I literally went and looked. I'm like, did Jason Levine leave Adobe? I'm like,
No,
why would you not? Why would you keep this weapon
he was
in the
producer.
holster?
He was
I,
producer.
yeah,
And
and I just
the thing is, I don't get me wrong, Joe. I understand that there is going to be some evolution within any company. And I'm sure that they were trying to evolve this and you know, let Jason do some other stuff, you know, because he's an evangelist. He's already busy. Let somebody else take the stage and talk about the products. Um, and I just don't think they hit the mark with this particular crew of speakers. Um, First, I was thinking, is it because they're in Miami, or would they have done this the same way if this was in LA? Because those are two different cities, two different communities, if you will. And granted, they're trying to harness all of the creators together in this centralized spot, be it LA or be it um, Miami. But I seem to remember in the past that a lot of the stuff that happened in the LA conferences, they tried to sort of pay homage to the city uh, with some little quirky remarks or things like that. And this one, I don't know what it was. It just seemed like it didn't seem like they were talking to me at all. in this day one keynote. Um, it felt more like a press release versus a genuine, engaged conversation with the thousands of people that are there in the crowd. Because in the past, it seems really engaged. And even a couple of times when they referenced the crowd there, everybody was like sitting on their hands and quiet. And I'm thinking, are they not impressed either? Or are they just, it's just not their thing? I don't know. The whole freaking thing felt like they're not talking to me this time. And I hate that because I ended up just having to go and read about the stuff or ended up just going straight to Mr. Terry White's YouTube channel directly and getting more perspective on it or or it just didn't seem the same, man. It all seemed way too corporate, not corporate, political type. Because politicians, they get up there and they're just reading the prompter, and even down to the cadence. The cadence in this thing sounded more like a political or old school news broadcast. You know what I mean when I say that? This
Absolutely.
is
Yep.
Dan Rather. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That kind of thing. It did not feel like the Adobe of of old. And again, maybe that's just me aging because I remember Terry White coming up there, and I'm glad he did because he was still Terry freaking White on the stage. And I remember when Jason Levine would come up there and would yell and get excited and be sweating because he's so freaking pumped up to show you the um, motion graphics templates inside of Premiere Pro. you know, I remember him singing and stuff like that. Um, this dude, before they even say his name, they're cheering because they knew Jason Levine was getting ready to give a demo. None of that has happened in this last one. None of that. And it just,
Yeah.
I
Now,
don't know, they just totally missed the mark. And then when I looked at the day two stuff, I had no interest in what was there. So I was like, nah, I, bro, I damn near slept in some of the day one keynote because I'm sick of hearing AI this, AI that.
I I completely agree. I made notes as I was going along because I pay attention and I have a pinball for a brain, so I don't remember everything. But I said right here, I've got a note. Notice the minimal applause through the first 30 minutes. And the keynote is about an hour and 20 and change, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
So that's a significant portion where they were stopping, waiting. Oh, we're supposed to clap. Okay. And it was golf clapping. It wasn't anything big. Not, again, like you said, a lot of this felt like we don't want to be sued for whatever AI lawsuits are coming. So we're going to
Yeah.
reiterate that we're doing this as
Over and
safely and with
over and
your
over and
permission
over.
constantly. And then some of the examples weren't even great, like the one of the golden retriever, and they're making 4 videos. If you actually look, only the first video is a golden retriever. The others, I have one, so I know they're not golden retrievers. So it made 3 different dogs. Now, that's okay, but they were trying to demonstrate that you could have basically take a still image and make a short video clip off it, which is nice.
Yeah, sure.
It's fine, but it wasn't 4 Goldens. It was 1, and then it was mudding it. It was just mixing other dogs in. So
Yeah.
based on the prompt that was written, it failed. It's not
Yeah.
correct. So maybe nobody
But that's
cared.
AI right now, bro.
Boy,
It
is it.
hardly ever gets it right on the first time. You know
I
what I mean?
I made such a tremendous error. I had a favor asked of me to take 2 people and put them together in a picture for somebody, and nothing big, nothing professional. It was just a favor for somebody. I'm like, oh sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
And so I looked at the 2 photos, and one of them had a kind of nice background, and the other was like in a hallway. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take the one with the nice background, and I'll do that generative extend thing. It's what they keep talking about, right? Let's do it. Let's see what it does. So I extended the image out, and I said, okay. I just typed extend background. Now, I don't know what it thought, but I am not. I should have screenshot this and sent it to you, and I regretted it the minute I closed it because I was horrified.
Did
It
it just stretch
added.
it?
No, the person's there, But then I think because there was a little, it might have been somebody's elbow, it might have been something in the background, this little space, there was just a little bit of a black area. It created what I would say, a 10-year-old black child wearing a witch's hat with demon eyes. Not red, but like white glowing eyes. And I was like, whoa, this is cursed. And I closed it. I should have sent it to you to say, look what the hell this thing did. I couldn't make it happen again. After that, it made normal people with some weird features sometimes, but some of them did have the dead eyes, but I don't know why it did it. And I was terrified of it because it was just out of nowhere. I did not expect it to make a little witch child with like X-Files black goo eyes. It was the weirdest. So, Firefly hasn't impressed me up to this point anyway, so it's fine. But it's fine. But they did show, which I thought was really interesting, if it works, that generative extend in Premiere and the smart masking, like that was really impressive. And it was well at the halfway point before they showed something that I thought, yes.
I was excited to see that feature in there because that is pretty freaking powerful if you can pull that off. And it looked freaking seamless in that demo. I haven't tried it with anything here because I haven't recorded anything like that where I would sort of want to extend, but I guess, I don't know, maybe I have some old footage in here that I could try. But I was impressed with that. And not to interrupt you, but what's her name? Dacia, the person doing that demo at the time. She was there with Paul Traney. They were sort of going back and forth. And even now, Paul Traney's been around a while. He's an OG on that stage. Even he seemed sort of like out of it and not necessarily himself, and almost as if he were more performative than before. He used to just seem like his natural self, and he was sort of goofy here and there and funny and smart alecky here and there, but it seemed natural in previous years. This one here, no, man, this seemed a lot like just reading the script and trying to follow the director's notes, And the Dacia girl, I'm sitting there, and all I could think about, and you probably hate this since you're a New York guy, is one of my favorite comedians, a Bostonian, Mr. Bill Burr. And Bill Burr, if you listen to any of his comedy nowadays, a lot of it is him just being reminded of how old he is now. And he's only like 50 something. But you look at what he's seen in the past and what he's looking at now from an entertainment standpoint. And I saw Dacia doing her demonstration and listening to her speak. I didn't understand none of it. Just y'all, I'm going to tell you, y'all, and I'm a Southerner. I know y'all. You know what I'm saying? But every other word was y'all. And then the one guy in Illustrator, it just seemed like this just kept throwing out so much weird.
Was that the Homies guy?
Homies, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm like,
that was weird.
What the hell is this? Is this a Miami thing, or that's why I asked? Is it something that just because they were in Miami and they thought the crowd was younger? Did they get some analytics that said most of the tickets purchased were from people in a certain age group, or am I just getting aged out, bro? Which happens? Are we just getting aged out of this shit?
My honest opinion is I think it's a combination of things, because I started noticing, just like you did, that there was like a lot of them were repeating things that it's almost, there's a thing that a lot of people do, and you hear it, once you notice it, it's very hard not to notice it all the time. And most people who do podcasts and that type of thing have this. I have it too. Usually what people do is they don't like to have a space for too long when they're jumping from one sentence to another, so they put something in between. My thing is, and sorry everybody, you're going to know it now, is I go, a lot. That's my kind of, so I'm like, I was doing this thing, and
no broadcaster likes dead air. I get that. But dude, this didn't seem like that. This seemed more like every other word was y'all. Because she kept going.
I think it's to your point about the fact that it was more strictly done. They were telling them, don't ad lib. And that probably made some people nervous, and they start doing that as compensation. So they're putting that in there because they can't be as fluid as they normally are. That's just my guess because, as you said, this felt like, and it is strange because of all the corporate or whatever things you watch. This is the one or one of the ones where people should be very loose. This is supposed to be,
Yeah.
in fact, it's so odd because in the Inspirations keynote, they made, and Scott, what was his last name? Blasky?
Belsky.
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 He led that one off.
Okay.
And the whole theme of that Inspirations thing, to jump ahead a little, was the differences are what make you special. The thing that makes you different is what is important, as opposed to just repeating the company line. And yet the opening keynote, until Terry White walked out on stage, was very, very just cold and clinical and lacking any real passion. And I think the one woman that I noticed was the one who kept doing these very robotic arm movements, and she kept repeating them.
Yeah.
And I get you're supposed to use listen, I use body movement all the time. I'm moving right now. Like, I get it, but it can't look like you're forcing it. It should look like it's an extension of yourself, not you going, and now here's how the stocks will go up as soon as I finish talking. And you're just kind of framing things.
Oh gosh.
It was bizarre. It was
Microsoft
very un Adobe like.
Adobe Max and was like, hey y'all, loosen up.
Yeah. It definitely was, like you said, there's personalities that you're sitting going, because here's my notes. Literally, when Terry White came out, hey, Terry White, exclamation point. Man, when you have a guy like that speaking, it really highlights the value of someone who can handle an audience smoothly. That was my comment.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
He had to rope him in just a touch. He did have to rope him in just a touch.
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think they were losing the room. And fortunately, he got it back.
Yeah, he did. And the one lady that did the Photoshop demo, I can't remember her name, clearly talented. She was nervous, bro. And
Vaporwave? Vaporwave girl? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I felt bad for her too, because I hate public speaking. So I understand that some people are not made for it. And I also felt like that whole demo, I would guess that was not her idea. That demo looked miserable. It was
so it wasn't just me, because I wasn't all that impressed with it. Okay, all right. So it wasn't just me.
Now look,
cool.
I'm not a professional artist of any caliber, right? Who am I to criticize? So I'm putting that caveat up front.
You're good.
But that is basement level design. There was nothing I don't believe that person was involved in that at all. I just don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
There was no feeling to it. It was, as you said, there are nerves, of course, but it was that anybody who knows Photoshop could assemble that with no skill. I don't believe that was a genuine representation of that individual's talent. I just don't believe it. I don't.
Yeah.
Which I think is horrifically unfair to somebody. I think what they told her is, you have to do this AI demo. We need you to use these parts and punch it up, because it looks the same as every other friggin' AI demo you see. I am so sick, and I'm not even anti-AI. I'm so sick of the over-saturated color schemes. Everything has to look like it's got 2,000 Pantone colors in it. Like, okay, can you give me something with a little bit of a desaturation? I don't need everything to be Technicolor diarrhea across my eyes. Like,
okay, now see, again, I think you're in the same realm that I am, thinking it's an age gap thing. I swear, most of the stuff that's out there nowadays that I see from younger people, it has that really, really crazy boosted saturation stuff. And every now and then you'll see some banding on things. And I don't think that banding is there because they added it. I believe that banding is there because they pushed it too far in the vector scope. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And again, I think that's just a generational thing right now. I can remember with my photography, I used to love pops of color, and then something happened. I was like, oh, that's actually too much pop of color. And now when I look at my images now, when I compare them to some of the other high school sports photographers around here, my shit looks totally desaturated in comparison. Doesn't look bad, but I think it's just a generational thing. I don't know. I can't blame that on AI. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't necessarily. Maybe it is. Maybe it is that. I just, and I don't look. I'm not against color. In fact, I love when
No,
people
I'm
use color because I'm so bad with it. So I'm the first one to say I am. I'm terrible with it. I don't do color well. It's not that I'm even colorblind. I wish I could even use that excuse. I can't. I'm
I
just
love color.
terrible
Color makes it
at
move,
deploying
man.
color. I, you know, so I don't mind seeing it. It's just I think it's less even that the colors are like that, but it's just everything is like that. And I guess if that's a generational thing, and maybe this is too much to expect from any company, I guess that's a fair thing to say back. But I would like Adobe to show a little bit more diversity then in what the stuff that they're showing people are. You can have all the colorful stuff, fine, but it doesn't all have to be that. You can actually show that composition matters. Sometimes
Yeah,
color can be
yeah,
distracting as opposed to focusing. You can show people that there's another way. It's nice to expose people to different points of view and
yeah.
perspectives in art so that they can go, huh,
Right.
I actually kind of like that. I never would have thought to do that way, and inspire them a bit with that. So it
Mm,
may be that they were responding to what the generational shift is. And I'm not saying that they should reject it and go, no, no, we're only going to stick with mid 40-year-olds. Yeah, that's a recipe for
yeah.
disaster. But
Right.
they can
Exactly.
also lead a little in saying, we're going to show somebody different. I mean, Terry White, I think before yeah, well, actually, no, his presets weren't that bad. But that's the kind of person who can say, well, here's a beautiful shot and it doesn't all have to be ultra punched up, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I thought his segment was the standout of the whole thing. He was the best speaker by far. And then they ended with Adobe Express. Oh my God, Adobe Express is the worst. I just did a survey. Ironically, they sent me a survey on Adobe Express within, I want to say, a day of me watching the first keynote. And
Uh-huh.
man, they're not going to ask me about it again because I said it was one of the worst things I've ever used. And I mean it. It is one of the worst things I've ever used. And the comments, if you
Yeah.
open the replay in YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
man, they savaged Adobe Express. Somebody said, yeah, maybe if it didn't have to cache 100 gigabytes and reload the preview every time I moved something a half pixel, I'd use it. And I'm like, yeah, that's.
Uh, I haven't spent that much time in Express. The few minutes I've spent in it, it's just been serviceable for just text on a quick image, real quick. That looks good. Different fonts, a couple effects on it, whatnot. And I did it on the phone. And then actually I did do a form in it not too long ago, and just being able to move the elements around in the browser and whatnot. I thought it was fine, but I haven't done anything extensive in it. But the whole time that I was in it, all I could think about was all of the emails that I get about education. And this product just seems like something really geared towards the younger students out there to at least get their feet wet, you know. Now, granted, you can do a little bit more in there, but it sounds like it's apparently a resource hog. I didn't know that. I had no idea.
It has been in my experience. I love the idea of the product, and I think what Adobe is really, and in fact, one of their surveys said something along these lines, which really kind of solidified this. I think they want Express to be the everything app for Adobe. That's what I think they want. They want you to
Yeah,
just
yeah, they
start there
definitely
unless you want to
they're very
specialize.
clear about that.
Right. And so that's the thing is it has to run. Yeah, for me, the longer I have it open, the worse it gets. So it's like it starts off and it's okay.
Yeah,
But then you get to a point and it just starts to bog itself down. And that has been the general reaction from most people I know who have used it. Now, I don't use it on the phone because I can't work on my phone. I have to work on a nice, big, beautiful screen. I can't
yeah, and
do
see
stuff
that's
on the
the
phone.
thing. That's why I'm like I can't really speak to it because what I do is mostly been done on the phone for something that I don't have to do a ton of detail to. Just sort of quick hit in and out, boom, it's done. It's good enough, kind of thing. You know,
No, maybe the mobile app is optimized better. That could be.
who
They may have
knows?
looked at
Who
it as
knows?
mobile first, which makes sense, and that might be why it's miserable for me. So the only
And
part, good.
go ahead. No,
I was just going to say the only thing that they kind of saved it at the end after the Adobe Express stuff was that Project Concepts thing looked really good. I actually thought that was really nice looking, that collaborative giant whiteboard space. They're not the
Yeah.
first to do it, but I actually looked at it and I said, that's useful. At least they ended on something useful, because I really liked how that all just worked. I thought that's an actual, they push you to use a lot of their collaborative tools and cloud stuff and all that. Nah, I'm like, I'm not the biggest on it. But that one, that I could see actually being very helpful for a lot of people. So at least they didn't
Frame.io
end
stuff is quite
badly.
nice. I will say that Frame.io has been, I don't use it as much now, but I had to use it quite a bit at one point in time, and it is really freaking convenient from a collaborative standpoint, because working on something with more than two or three people that have two or three different jobs, and it just syncs right then and there, that's magical, you know and then when you take into the effect the customer, bring them into the fold, and they can only do so much, which is essentially just commenting, but it really does help with narrowing down things too, even especially with video, down to the frame. Right, no, right here, let me circle right here in the frame, let's get rid of that. Can you shift the camera? Just, I love Frame.io for that. That's definitely one of their better acquisitions at Adobe, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think that whole part was that the collaboration stuff they were showing off. I think was a huge beneficial thing to point out, because it is, number one, it's designed nicely, which a lot of the older collaboration suite stuff was not. A lot of it was very ugly, very plain, didn't look sexy, which I know shouldn't matter. It should matter if the tool works, but guess what? It does matter. So it was nice to see it nicely laid out and
Yeah.
everything that it can do. And I almost skipped over, what did you think of the cloud to camera thing? Because I saw Canon was added to that list.
Well, I can't say anything because Canon is on that list, but I don't have any capability yet with my camera, and I'm on an R5 III. I'm not sure if it's something I've done wrong with firmware, but I've not been able to do anything. I love the idea that you can shoot, and as long as you have the Wi-Fi connection going to the particular access point or whatnot, and it uploads them there. I love that. That's brilliant, especially for, you know, gonna care about this, but especially for sports, shooting in the middle of the game, and that stuff is already going upstairs to the editing booth to get stuff out for the halftime report. That's freaking brilliant, because right now what happens is they shoot the stuff and dash as soon as the halftime buzzer goes off. They dash to a press corner and plug in their Ethernet on their cameras, if their camera has Ethernet, and then do an FTP or some type of upload that way. Where here it's already there. You know.
Yeah, that wowed me, and I'm not even much of a photographer, and I thought, wow, that's, I imagine a lot of people are losing their mind over that. That just
I
seems like a
love the
feature that
idea.
every camera will have before long. Any major one will have in some
I
way, because it
love the
just looks
idea.
wild.
And as soon as because I've done similar with some of the high school games, just I'll shoot something, and then at halftime I walk over there to the corner and I just tether my camera to my phone and I grab a couple things and I post halftime at so and so. Here's an image that I roughly edited on my phone real quickly. That's so I do a version of that, and if it's able to do that on the fly without me having to turn the feature on and wait on it, I'd be down for that
I
anytime.
tried out a Wi-Fi memory card a while back. I don't remember
I
what the
had one
brand
too.
was, and it was so slow. It was
iFi.
unusable. Yeah, I think it was iFi. Yeah, a little
Yeah.
orange SD
Yeah.
card looking thing with a eye on it. Yeah, that was probably it. Yeah,
Yeah, iFi.
I mean,
I had that, and it was freaking slow.
yeah, it sort of worked. You could see what it was trying to do, but it was not something I ever chose to go forward with, even if I, you know, had a reason. But I was like, I'll play with it and see. And it was better than nothing, but that's about all.
It
So,
worked. It was really slow though, but it did work.
yeah, yeah. So that basically wraps up the keynote. And I think our general enthusiasm should tell you how much the keynote went over. It wasn't a disaster, but it was less than inspiring, which is not what you want to lead off your creativity conference with.
Let me say this, Mr. Joe.
Yeah.
It is no secret that I am a fan of Adobe. And
as
so,
am I.
yes, I said everything that I just said with the God honest truth. Everything that I said, I believe and feel. But I still am a fan of Adobe. I just am also one that if you can improve somewhere, I'll tell you, you can improve somewhere. I love a lot of different things, but if something can be improved upon, I'll let it be known that yeah, this thing can still be improved upon on this particular aspect. And Adobe, yeah, they have things that they can improve on when it comes to this Adobe Max presentation that we just saw. Um, I don't know. I haven't heard from Jason in a long time. I wondered if he changed his number because I used to talk to the dude. Um, Now he ain't answering the last two text messages I sent to him, and I hesitate to ring him, but it's just not the same right now. And Adobe can very well say, yeah, that's the point. We don't want this to be the same as the previous year. We're trying to grow. We're trying to evolve or iterate, if you will, and that's fine. But man, this just didn't hit the same.
And I don't disagree with any of that, although I don't know that growing this way is going to benefit the company because I can't exactly think that many young people would have been all that energized either. So it's one thing that, yes, some of the demos may have been skewed younger, and that's fine. That may be their goal. But when so much of getting to that point was very dry and lacking a lot of kind of the passion you would expect, are you really going to think that anybody of a younger age is going to make it through it unless they're literally there? And then maybe, but I don't know, probably would have walked out because what do they care? But I don't know that anybody who's younger would even make it through the first keynote, which is a shame because I think the Inspirations keynote, as it has been before, is the best thing they did and was it was such a 180 from the opening thing. They let off with a local singer singing with a guy playing guitar, a local vocalist. And she was excellent.
They did give the nod. They did give the nod to the local area. Okay, that's what they do in LA.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I mean is the Inspiration one. To watch that one, you sit there and go, where were you on the first one? Did nobody take notes? And then Scott came out and they started out with a sensationally great quote from a poet named Mary Oliver, and I'll read it. The most regretful people on earth are those who feel the call to creative work, who felt their own creative power restive in uprising and gave to it neither power nor time. That's the lead-off quote, which is, if you feel creative, you should be. That's what it's saying. That's the less elegant my version of it. And that's immediately setting such a different tone right after the vocalist. It's like, oh, okay, this is what Max is supposed to be. We're celebrating. And the vocalist, I love when people are all tattooed up. I have not a tattoo on my body because I can't stand needles and I can't stand pain. So I'm too chicken shit for it. But I love seeing people in prominent things where they're tatted head to toe. I'm like, that's great. And this woman had them all over. I'm like, this is what I want to see, man. I want to see because at one point they made it very clear that the last speaker said, standing out just means that you are getting along with the misfits. And I'm like, yes, that's it. And so like that quote and this woman was such a great lead off. It was such a palate cleanser from the first keynote. And then Scott came out and they started off with the AI stuff. And I went, oh no. Because then they're talking about the chapters of AI. The prompt era came first, and now we're in the controls era, which was their way of trying to say, well, it's a tool, so it's not going to replace you. And I thought, oh no, we're going down this road again. I really thought after that opening, it was just going to be all the same mistakes of the keynote, and it almost was. And then, as they usually do, they bring in the speakers, and the speakers were all, again, excellent. These people are the best thing about Max, outside of the people you meet there. is when you
Mm-hmm.
see actual creators and they tell their stories. And they're
Yeah.
always good. They always pick very intelligently, which I'm happy at least they haven't lost that ability.
Right.
I mean, those are the people that you sit there and you want to talk to these people. And the nice part is you usually can, because they're usually around. So you can actually
Yeah, it
go and
is.
find them, which I think is
Right.
great.
Usually walking around.
Yeah. So the first one they had was, his name was Devin Rodriguez, portrait artist from New York City. And he was talking, and there was a couple of themes in it. One was being different and why that's good, which I think is great. Another one that he was hitting on was this idea that rejection can be good for you, that, not succeeding can be a learning experience if you take the right things from it, which I think is a vital lesson that people don't learn, is that failure is not necessarily a bad thing if there's something that you can take out of it. And I don't think that message is said enough, is that, no, you're not always going to get it right the first time. That's fine, as long as you learn something from it and try to grow from it. And that was basically what he was talking about, because he started out and, he was getting in trouble with the law, this type of thing. And then he came into the orbit of somebody who recognized that he had a good work ethic and said, okay, here's how we can get you to where you need to be, and kind of pushed them. And again, the importance of mentors, I thought that was great. And his whole thing, and all of them were pushing positivity, try to radiate positivity, which is, I think,
Right.
excellent. Like I'll take that message all day long. So that was his thing. Then they brought out a woman whose name is it Emone. I'm going to butcher this. It's spelled Emonee. Emone. I think it's Emone. I think was her name. Or no, it was Amon, because at first I thought it was spelled like Amon, like David Bowie's Amon. That's right, because they said Amon,
Okay.
and I thought it was Iman. It's not. And she was an animator and a motion graphics artist, and her big thing was, and you've said this yourself, I usually say at the end of every podcast, is, hey, you have to love yourself, you have to believe in yourself, and you can't listen to what anything outside. If you know that you have this talent, if you believe in yourself, don't listen to anybody else, because she was trying to be a cinematographer, and all these people around her were saying, nope, you're not talented enough. Yep, you're not going to make it. And she had to get to a point where she was like, either I believe in myself or I don't. And she chose to, and now she's doing stuff for like, I don't know, so there was big name musical acts that she does music videos for, and does these great motion graphics. I mean, some wild stuff. So I thought that was great. Then this was surprising to me. I have a feeling this had to be if I had to guess, that there was a scheduling thing here or something fell through, because the next guy is named Norman Teague, and I'm going to be back in New York for Christmas, and I'm going to go to the MoMA because I want to see this guy's stuff, because he's got an exhibit there now. And they just did a video for him. He wasn't actually there. But he started talking, and at one point he said, because they're showing all this, he does like sculpture and physical art and all this stuff, and he said that his entire shop, the operating principle is, what if African Americans came to America and were welcomed as kings and queens? What would that past have looked like? And all their stuff is basically an alternate past without all of the terrible things that happened. What would furniture look like? What would all these things look like if these influences have been welcomed and incorporated? And it's beautiful stuff. And like I said, he's got a thing at the MoMA for, I don't know how long, but I'm getting down there because I want to see this stuff. I mean, some of the chairs they were showing, they were just wild looking, and lots of color and all this interesting texture to it. And he would have been such a great person to hear. So I have to think they wanted him there. And something happened, because his bit is excellent. I mean, nobody's as bad, but that one really caught my attention, because I'm like, man, that is such a strong point of creativity to jump from. Like, it's such a direct and personal and interesting way to approach art. And it's excellent. Like, go check his stuff out. It's fantastic. And then they ended with Jason Naylor, who is essentially a spray paint artist. I mean, that's what he said. He only works in spray paint. Another guy tattooed, like neck down, covered. Like I said, I just love tattooed people, because I just can't ever do it myself. And plus, I would want to change it too often. I mean, I'd be a mess. I'd just be covered in ink lines. And he said, because he's from New York, and he was talking about, or he's not from New York, but he lives in New York, and he said this quote, You can walk down the street naked in New York and someone might look, but they won't give a shit. And I'm like, yep, that's
Right.
correct.
That's right.
But he was the one who had this line that sometimes standing out just means fitting in with the misfits. And his thing was very positively focused too.
I like that.
And my ending thing was, this was far and away the best keynote. Positivity and procreativity, the best part of Max. And this is what I mean about, where were the people who made this in that opening one? I mean, this is the thing to see. If you don't watch anything else from Max, watch all this. If you're a creative person, it will just jazz you right up. Just watching it, it just makes you want to be there. And I love that stuff. It's just the best thing. And I'm glad that they didn't manage to make that dry, corporate, and without a soul either. So at least that portion came through the way it usually did. So I know you didn't get to watch it, but that part is worth watching.
It's not a didn't get to watch it, quote unquote. It was, I chose not to because of what I saw with the original keynote. Okay. And now shame on me because I'm kicking myself a bit now listening to you and then just looking up this Iman LaRussa. She's it's pretty freaking insane, the creativity and the imagination this young lady has.
And she's very young. So
I hate that I missed out on that, but fortunately, the video on demand, I can go back and watch it. But at the same time, I didn't trust it because I also remember a couple of years back, excuse me, the Billie Eilish, when she was being interviewed with the other artist, I can't remember the artist's name, but Billie Eilish, and how disappointing that one made me. And I was like, I don't want to waste my time watching another disappointing session. I got other stuff I can go do, So that's what I did. But yeah, it's nice to see that this turned out to be pretty good. So I can at least go back and watch it now.
And that is what the disappointment from, I totally understand that, because again, even at the beginning, when you get that first bit, you're going to think, and that's what I was thinking was, oh no, this is the same thing. They've managed to common denominator this thing too. We're going to just get everybody. I was positive for about a minute and a half that it was going to be everybody talking about Firefly, and that's all they were, like Firefly artists. And I was just like, okay, this is going to be a lot to get through. Fortunately, it wasn't. At least whoever is running things understands how important that part is. But you're right. I'm sure this is what I mean about if somebody younger watched that keynote from the first day, they're never going to make it to this because they're going to be like, yeah, I don't care. This is dull. Unless they're photographers. The Terry White thing would have saved it for them. But anybody else, I don't know that, like you, I don't think they're going to make it to the second one. As you're sitting there going, you're defeating the purpose of your whole conference. Because these are the people you want to be telling people to go create. And they all use Adobe tools. I mean, they point it out, but you don't have to. Their presence there tells you that they obviously like Adobe, or at least they're willing to appear for them, so they can't hate them that much. So you want these to be the faces of, okay, and really across the age spectrum, which was great, because Iman was very young. I don't know what her actual age is, but she's pretty young. And then I think Norman Teague might have been the oldest one there. It was tough to tell. I'm terrible with ages in general, but he looked like he was the oldest one. So you had a nice span of people from all different walks of life, because Devin was talking about, possibly going to jail. And then Iman was disrespected every place she was trying to just be creative. Norman is creating something positive out of a terrible past that we all have to deal with. And then Jason Naylor is a Mormon who grew up where you were told you have to live a very specific way, and individuality is not to be embraced. So these are your stories. This is, everybody can see some bit of themselves in these people.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think, like you, a lot of people probably were like, why bother? This is just Adobe going in the more corporate AI direction, like everybody else. What is unique about this? And these are the people that are unique. So I would say, if you don't watch anything else, watch that.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot.
It will redeem the whole first thing for you. I believe me.
That's good to hear. Because I'm telling you.
Now, I would not advise watching Sneaks. You can read about it. I watched it. And I said this last year. I'm going to say it again. This thing where they bring in a celebrity who clearly has no idea about the technology. I mean, it's just, you got people like I said, Jason Levine. You have Adam Savage. You have people in the public eye who are enthusiastic about creativity and making things. There's tons of these people that have name recognition. Why do they keep bringing in these people that don't add anything to what Adobe is? I guess it's just pure celebrity, which is the worst impulse.
Celebrity. It is pure celebrity. I will say though, Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish, they did well in Sneaks. When I remember, those are the two that I remember thinking, okay, yeah, they were funny and sort of played to the crowd as well as played to the staffer presenting at times. And I thought they did pretty good. The rest of the ones I've seen is like, huh? Why am I here? Well, no, what's his name? Kumar Nalgiani. Is that how you say his
Oh
name?
yeah. I know him from Silicon Valley. I can never remember the name, but yeah.
Yeah, he was good too. So that's three. They were good.
Yeah,
the rest I can't really say.
it's not a flat rule, but what I mean is, I think this year it was Awkwafina, who I like as an actress. I've seen her and stuff. I think she's a talented actress, but man, she had nothing for and the presenter was trying, but there are some people, I'm sure you've been in this position, maybe you're in it right now, where you're like, oh God, who am I talking to? And it's just, you can't do anything with them. And this was, it was hard to watch at times.
Those three that I mentioned, they were very honest about not being tech savvy, if you will. They were very upfront about that. But all three of them showed that they were open to see what was about to be put out there and hear a little bit more about it. I want to say it was Kumar that, every now and then would ask a couple of questions. It's like, okay, so wait a minute, how did this do? Okay, what made you think of, he legit asked questions. I think it was him. It was him or Kevin Hart. One of them, they asked questions straight up of the guy or girl doing the presentation at the time, because they were interested. And then of course they made some wisecrack comments and stuff, but it was all sort of timely. It didn't really seem forced, if you will.
Yeah, I don't think they all have to be, using the tools themselves, but like you said, there has to be a kind of more back and forth to it. It can't just be, which is what this one felt like. Okay, I'm waiting to be prompted by the speaker to have a reaction.
Yeah,
and not.
And there's my cue, and I got nothing.
And I make a superficial kind of general audience joke that doesn't really mean anything, and we just keep moving. So, like I said, there are good examples, and there are lots of other people out there. So I guess it is just a pure celebrity thing. But I think it doesn't serve anybody, because I don't know that anybody who's even a fan of Awkwafina would watch this and go, wow, I'm sure glad she was doing that. Why? But that's not the important part. The important part is all the things that they preview. This is I just saw my all in caps in the middle of the Sneaks. Oh my God, the banter so bad. Yeah, I wasn't a fan. So they led off with and here's another just small note of mine. Most of the people who they have in these Sneaks are the actual engineers who came up with the products. Many of them are not native speakers, which I have no issue with. Fine. Now, myself personally, I'd let them speak their native language and put subtitles, but I know Americans don't like subtitles, so I'm letting that one go. I get it. Nobody wants to read. But if you're going to make them speak a language they're not fluent in, don't make them make jokes. Just let them explain the product. They obviously care about it. They'll explain it well.
Let that nerd cook. Just let them cook. That's all they want to do.
That's it. Yes. I mean, I work with a lot of engineers. Many of them are not exactly made for public speaking. That's okay. That's not their talent.
Right.
Let them stick with what they do. That's fine.
And I love them. I love those engineers, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones
No,
I love.
they're the ones who know something. Those are the people you
Yeah,
can learn from. Is the
yeah.
people who, when they start, and you can always tell because many times they look very bored talking about anything other than what they know, and then they perk
Yeah.
up, and
Right.
suddenly,
Exactly.
right, and but then they're the best person in the room. The whole room fades out as soon as they're talking about,
Hmm.
okay, what we did was we took this and we figured out that we can move. That's my kind of people. Like I like that. So they let off with Project Clean Machine, which seemed like an improved version of the thing that they showed last year where there was the glare and they took the glare off the window. It was
Right.
essentially a way to take flashes and things that are distractions in videos and automatically remove them. Perfectly fine, but it looked a lot like that other one, which I don't remember. I think they just actually released that into Lightroom. I think they just made it available where it can pull the glare off the windows. Project See Through, I think it was called.
See through. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
familiar.
and this was a video version of that, which hey, that's great because it's video. But that felt very similar. So I went, okay, that's neat. Video version's very nice. I'm sure it's a lot tougher than still images. So they let off with that. I thought, okay, that's neat. Then they went to Project Remix-a-Lot, which is a graphic design tool, and this one is one that really seems geared for people who are doing a proposal. It almost kind of feels like it's related to the Frame.io type of idea, where
Yeah.
you can just sketch something really quickly and it transforms it into a much nicer looking version and then lets you pick versions of it to be able to present to somebody. As far as a proposal tool, that I thought was pretty neat. I could see a lot of people who could just do a quick sketch and then have it kind of, make, because some sketches are pretty rough. And it lets you kind of play with that and do some iterations of it. And that was neat. I like that. Now, did you see any of this? Did you just read the sneak stuff? Did you see any of it? Uh-oh. And then I lost him.
Sorry. Mute was
Oh,
on, so I had to close
no,
my
that's
door.
okay.
Somehow my door got open and it's supposed to have been closed. Um, no, I didn't. I didn't watch those, but I
Okay.
do have the what do you call it? The page in front of me.
Okay, so all right, so you're looking at the same one. Okay, all right,
Hmm.
perfect. So then they went to Project Emotion, which was that one was in Express, I think, and so that was one of those where I went, okay, once Express works better, then I'll be more interested. That one is, okay, but again, it's related to Express, but perfectly fine. And then the next one was Project Supersonic, which was where you could generate kind of basically B-roll sound effects, more or less.
Hmm.
And
Foley.
that one I thought was actually pretty compelling because, the idea of having room tone and things to fill in like the audio soundscape, that's actually
Hmm.
really important. A lot of people don't consider that if you don't actually do any of that work. You don't think about it until you notice it's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
So,
And I gotta tell you, part of me not watching Sneaks was because I, again, an ass out of you and me, assuming they were just gonna give me a whole bunch of generative AI prompts, you know, and
sure.
I'm like, that's okay. I can wait for the actual launch and see this. But this right here, this Project Supersonic, that does sound useful.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't tell you that you were wrong to skip it as a presentation because about half of it I found to be not bad. I don't want to say any of this stuff is bad because, like science, a lot of these projects may not end up being what they are right now in the early form, but may lead to
Yeah.
something really important.
Yeah.
And I think there's a huge value in letting people play around with things and coming up with ideas that may seem small scale until they
Hmm.
intersect with another idea.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad to
I don't
do
want to.
this stuff, but from a consumer standpoint, I guess I'm just guarded and just assuming everybody's going to show me a text box tells me to type in what I want to type in and watch what happens. You know what I'm saying?
And a lot of it is that I'm just a sucker. because I go in and I let my optimism take over a little bit. It often disappoints
And
me, but that's okay.
I'm not a negative dude, by any stretch of the imagination. I'm fairly optimistic as well, but it's just, dude, everybody can't afford my attention nowadays. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and again, I go back to and I'm gonna hammer the hell out of this point because this is exactly the problem: is when your opening is so lifeless.
Yeah.
You basic. I'm sorry, but it is. I like Terry White too, but you can't save an hour and a half with Terry White for 15
Dude.
minutes. Like, you can't do it. Can't do it. So that again, just it's when you start underwhelming, you're not going
Yeah.
to inspire people to keep going with it.
Right.
And that's the
Right.
problem when your leadoff is such a fumble. Hey, sports terms. When you start off that way, right? If you do it here, look at this. Football. Ready? Football people are going to understand this. If on the first play you turn over the ball and the team hits a touchdown right away, you're not going to get the audience back in unless you really save it in the end. And it's tough to do that when you take that long to get there. That's what I'm talking about is there. Football terms. See, I can do sports talk minimally.
Somewhat.
I could use probably an AI generative tool to help me with football terms. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So then Project Hi-Fi felt a lot like the Project Remix, except that it was more of a Photoshop thing instead of Illustrator. But there I can see, and this is what, to get to your point about young people, this is something where I thought, okay, this is where people can make backgrounds for live streaming, for videos that they can just whip up very quickly. And that's where I thought that's something that a TikTok person or somebody who's doing live streaming, this is something that might get their attention to look at using Adobe. So that I could see skewing younger. Makes sense. It was interesting. Wouldn't be something I necessarily cared all that much about, but I could see where it was aimed. And that made sense. Like, that made a lot of sense to me. Then they did.
Me. I have my nephew back in Carolina. Not gonna say his excuse me, not gonna say his name, but he does Twitch streams. And I told him I'll follow him just to try to show him some support. And he went live one day, and again, this is a 19-year-old kid, maybe 20, young is what I'm saying. He went live on Twitch. I fired it up, started watching. I have no idea what was going on that screen between people popping in, joining them like it was a Zoom call, and they talking about nothing. I mean, literally, some girls popped up on the screen, and they trying to talk to the girls because that's what young boys do. And it went nowhere. I had no idea what I was watching, but I hit the little button so he got some analytics, and then I left. And then I messaged him later on in that day, and I was like, I was on your stream. What the hell was that? I was like, I have no idea what was going on. And he openly admits, which is why I think he's going to be all right. He says, hey, Unc, we Gen Z. That's what we do. And when you go through and look, a lot of that content is the same kind of mindless, off the wall, makes no sense to me content, and they're all in that same generation. So yeah, I think he's going to be all right. But to your point, this sounds like something, again, streamers would latch on to and possibly get them into the ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's where aiming at the younger demographic makes a lot of sense because, look, you and I aren't going to live forever. Adobe's going to need new customers. That's just the reality of it. Whether younger people are going to be able to afford this tool, I don't know. It doesn't seem like doesn't seem like job security is all that great for younger people, but that's a completely different show about completely different things. But that's the kind of thing where, again, unlike the keynote where I'm sitting here going, you're not going to keep anybody who's younger, especially like you're talking about. If they're used to kind of rapid fire, everything's in motion, well, guess what? That's the opposite of what that opening keynote was. That's where the inspiration one was better because it was a lot of big, bright speakers moving around. Although that too I noticed that like some of the speakers, and maybe it was just them, I don't know, weren't moving all that much. Like I want somebody moving all over that stage. Like again, Jason Levine, Terry White. Terry White just comes out from behind the podium, starts walking around like you start watching him, you're following him. He's not just standing there.
I don't
That's what you
particularly
need
need
is
that, but I do need some other body language that says I'm engaging with you, and it is okay for you to engage with me.
yes, something with a little bit of sparkle and life to it, I guess. Yeah, something,
Mm-hmm.
something. Not in these examples because these are engineers, so I don't want to apply that criticism here. I know they're working on a
Yeah,
machine. That's okay. These are
yeah,
short fire, much briefer things.
right.
So they went from that to Project Scenic, which I felt was a lot like the Project Remix a lot thing, except that this was prototyping 3D scenes. I don't do a lot of 3D, so it looks neat for people who do. Again, this is a lot of prototyping stuff, which I do think is one of the significant things about AI that often gets pushed aside in favor of chatbots and all the just kind of surface level garbage is the real power of these tools is often going to be it's saving you an hour of doing this early work that you don't really care about so you can get to the work you do want to do. That's great.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
that's where it should be. And this felt like that type of thing where it's like, okay, you don't want to spend an hour brainstorming. You want to just come up with a bunch of ideas and then see what grabs you and then refine it. And that's where the fun is. So that for 3D people, I'm sure that's great. For me, I don't do 3D, so I was like, okay, neat tool. Now the next one is actually the one I'd be curious about your reaction to. And that is, and I know you haven't necessarily seen the video of it, but that Project Perfect blend. Did you see anything outside of reading what this is?
No, I didn't see anything visual about it.
So this
Excuse me.
is very similar about it's doing a lot of image correction. It made me think of that Google Pixel feature where it puts you in the selfie that you weren't
Yeah,
in. Yeah,
right.
that type of thing. But
And
what
it
I
even tries to do the proper lighting for you too when it blends. That kind of stuff is cool, you know. Um, because crap happens on some of these photo shoots that are beyond your control. Um, the light gets weird at a particular moment. Someone in the background that you had no idea was in the background because you're so focused in on the subject and stuff like that. And yeah, I get it. And what Google did with their version of it, it's pretty slick. I didn't see this Adobe version, but I bet it's going to be pretty spot on, especially when you start handling blend modes and blend diff and stuff like that automatically without having to go through all of the different menus to do that.
yeah, this is one of those where I'll be very curious what the final version looks and works like because a lot of these obviously demos are made
Yeah,
to be idealized, right? They don't want to show you the mistakes.
of
And I
course.
think like you, I one of the funniest parts about Firefly in general is I rarely feel the need to go to an AI tool for anything. That's not me trying to play superior or anything. I just don't ever find that it doesn't think like I
Mm.
do. I mean, who does? So,
Haven't needed it in your toolkit. That's fair.
right. But the couple times I've been like, oh, let me dip into this thing, it has been so hilariously off the mark that, and I don't necessarily even blame Firefly. I think this is actually a common thing. Is a lot of AI tools, when you actually dig into them, it's like, oh yeah, I got that perfect image. 400 revisions later, I'm like, okay, man, like I'm fine. I don't need that. And
And you bring up a great point with this because this is something that has never been discussed from Adobe. I haven't seen an answer on it. And if you have the answer to it, please share it with me, sir. But with all of this generative stuff built right in natively to these tools now, okay, they are, you're logged into your Adobe account when you open up these apps. And if you're using that generative tool, whatever generative tool it is attached to your Adobe login. Depending on the Adobe Creative Cloud package that you have, you get X amount of generative AI credits. I think I got like 1,000 or something like that. How much is being used, when I say um, remove this object in the background when I use the lasso tool instead of using the, oh, dang, I just lost my. train of thought. The content aware fill, because content aware fill, that's not using generative AI. That's using its own little algorithmic looking at near pixels and stuff. Correct.
Far as I'm aware, that's what they've always said. That was always the
Right.
difference. Yeah, that's
Right.
taking.
So
In other words, to explain it to people is when you're using content aware, it is only supposed. I mean, as far as I'm not going to say it like it's conspiracy theory. It takes only the information within the image it already has locally, and tries to contextualize it to fill in. Whereas generative is inventing. It's generating pixels that aren't there. That's the biggest difference.
right. And when it's generating, it is billing your account, if you will, whatever those 1,000 credits that I have. What they never say is if I do a just fill in this spot on my background, just there's a tree that's right there. I want to remove the tree and just have it a blank sky, which is not hard to do with content aware fill. So pretty sure it can't be too hard on AI. But how much am I losing out of my $1,000 balance doing that? There's never been anything said on that.
Well, interestingly, it appears that they updated their generative credits overview on October 14th of this year. And
Oh,
in
sweet.
there is a general breakdown. It still took me a couple of reads to figure it out, but I think
Oh,
I've
see,
got it
well, that's
straight.
not clear. That means they're gonna have some loopholes, and people are gonna get screwed. Shit
So
should be
what it
black and white.
says is, okay, I'll just read this and you tell me because I'm not exactly the genius on the planet either. So it says, unless specified in the exemptions list below, which they do lay out what the exemptions are, which a lot of it is beta stuff, so that's fine. That I understand that might be wonky. Okay, fine. Uh, AI features powered by Firefly and creativity and design applications such as the Firefly website or Photoshop will use one generative credit per generative action. The credit
Oh,
consumption rates are for standard images of up to 2000 by 2000 pixels. Over that, though, they don't say anything. So there's your loophole.
standard resolution imagery is up to 2,000 by 2,000 pixels. Usage rates
Correct.
may vary. Plans are
Yep,
subject to change. See, that's bull.
I agree. It's more than they had before, but it certainly isn't very clearly defined. But I don't remember seeing the 2000 by 2000 thing before. I don't remember ever seeing a number.
No,
So that's a starting point. But see, this is the thing that is always going to fuel my caution over this stuff is we don't know what the true cost of these tools are. We have no idea.
right, right. Somebody's got to
Because
pay for this stuff. That compute time.
absolutely, and it is not going to stay this cheap. This is Uber in the early days, man. This is
Yeah,
oh, we're going to subsidize it all. We're going to take a loss because we know they are, and then once enough people are dependent on it, we're going to drop the hammer. That's what it's going to be, guaranteed. So this is one thing that I think is a 50-50. And I don't want to talk about this too long because I know you're sick of this too. But when I hear people saying, well, you better know AI or you're not going to be able to work in the future, I'm sitting there going, I don't know that that's a great message because if you only know this stuff and you're working at a company and suddenly the company they're leasing whatever from decides to triple their rate, you're gone. You should be able to operate without it. You want to operate with it, know it. That's fine.
yeah.
But do not. This is like becoming a social media manager. Those jobs were all over the place for a while. Not so much anymore. So be
And
cautious is all I'm
I
saying.
just did a test. So I opened up a file of mine, shot with my Pixel, and of course that's greater than the 2,000 um, aspect. What do you call it? Resolution. It's greater than 2,000 by 2,000 resolution, and I just circled something and sold it to do generative fill. My account went from 1,000 to 997.
There you go. 3 credits. Because you hit the magic mystery area. So
Let me see.
why was it 3? Who knows?
I'm gonna do another one real quick here. It's basically in the background. There's like little marks on the desk. So I'm just telling it, fill in these marks on the desk.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what happens here. So now that says Let me reload in the browser. It's thinking, okay, it just used one credit there. Okay. All right. Okay.
However,
We'll see how long this goes
well,
though.
and that's exactly where I was, because here's something other companies are doing, and maybe Adobe won't do it, but I wouldn't bet my house on it. Is other companies are starting to do this thing where, oh, we have to increase the price though because we're giving you so many more features, even if you're
Right.
not using it, right?
Right.
So, fortunately, again, if you're not dependent on it and you can do these things without it, even if it might take a little more time, you should be fine. But this is where I'm like, be careful if all you're doing is doing this stuff, because if this is your only skill or your skill becomes this is the same complaint I've made, and I make it a lot, about the iPad, which is my primary artwork device. And I hate that it's my primary artwork device because nobody else makes a tablet like Apple does. And if Apple does
Yeah.
something that I don't like, I'm screwed
Yeah.
because I can't go to another tablet.
Yeah.
I
You're
mean, I
locked in.
literally sit there sometimes and go, I hope this company does not really just become the biggest asshole on the planet, or I'm stuck with them, because
Yeah.
I love that thing, but I wish
Hmm.
that Microsoft or Android or Google made one as good, so that if everything else I've diversified my technology, I can't do it with that. Nobody's like the
Yeah.
iPad. Nobody.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. Be careful, over specialize, and you breed in weakness. The weakness is if the floor falls out from under you, you got no parachute. So that's all my caution is with that. Is it's great to be able to use it. Get familiar with it. Do not become reliant on it, because it is a very uncertain future in many ways. So that does actually, though, very smoothly segue into the second to last sneak, which was Project Know How. And this is feels very tied into their opening keynote message of, we know you're worried. We want to make sure nobody's copying your work. We want to make sure that people know the source of the work, where this is a tool that will trace back the origins of the artwork somehow. I'm not
Yeah.
quite clear how well this is actually going to work outside of Adobe watermarked things, but I also wonder if this can be abused by people. It seems like it could be. It feels like a sincere effort, but I don't know that we'll ever see this thing, or if it's going to look anything like this, because I just don't
And
know
what
how
was
well
this
this
one
could
called
actually work.
again?
Project Know How. It's I'll read their description on the list in that page. It's about in the middle.
Oh, there it is.
Project
Now
Know
I see
How
it.
envisions the future of content provenance by demonstrating the durability of content credentials across both digital and physical spaces. Through fingerprinting and watermarking, users can quickly trace the origins of videos and images to their original source, even when visible content credentials metadata has been stripped. I doubt it, but okay. Project Know How exemplifies how Adobe continues to help build trust and promote transparency across all forms of content. Aren't we smart? I don't.
Okay.
They didn't say
So
aren't we smart.
this has been talked about for what, 3 years now?
At least.
And nothing has changed, bro. Granted, they've added some more partners. Um, but when I go and look on Instagram, because that's what a normal person would do, is look on Instagram when they're looking at pictures of their friends and family. There is nothing on there that says that that friend or family member took that photo, that they own that photo. There's no badging, there's nothing. The closest thing you get is Meta saying, AI may have been used in this, that kind of thing. But there's still no, what do they call it, provenance of saying that this is an image owned by me or owned by so and so. Um, yes, I have Lightroom on my phone, and it has that feature built into it. And it's funny because it only works unless you're connected to an internet connection. So you better be on Wi-Fi or you have a good signal. And I'll post that thing to the social medias, if you will. Nobody sees it, bro. Nobody sees this whole credentials. Um, I get that this stuff is important, but nobody knows. Only people that knows are nerds that are going to spend time trying to go in to look at the digital fingerprints, if you will. This should be something more for the masses. Um, that says, "Hey, this is a legit image made by Aunt Pruitt or by so and so," and that they used AI. But, there should be something like that, especially this day and age, the way things are confusing a lot of people as real. And this project know-how, this is not, so far it just sounds like a time filler for the stage that day, and I didn't even see it. It's been talking about this shit for 3 years, and nothing's really changed.
Well, one of the funny bits from this is actually back in the inspirations keynote in the opening bit, which was the part where I was still kind of not sure where it was going. At one point, Scott said, the biggest cheer I heard in any keynote up to that point, until the inspiration people started talking, was he started talking, because they were talking about Behance for a while, which I meant to say, there is an interesting thing they've added, that I'm ready to work, or I'm available to work thing in Behance. That wasn't there, I don't think, before, because they made a big deal about it. And I like that, because I think it is nice to have a creative alternative to LinkedIn, where, you could say I'm ready for work, but LinkedIn is, I've certainly never liked using it, so I'd rather use Behance to be able to say, hey, yeah, I'll do projects, and you can even specify what your availability and things like that are. That's actually, I think, useful. It's like a kind of a ZipRecruiter, I guess, for creators, right? I mean, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he's talking about that, and they're talking about all the other stuff. And one of the things they said you can do is in Behance, you can enable a tag that says "Do not train," right? And everybody cheered. Like, it was a very enthusiastic response, which tells you something. A lot of people were clapping for that. After the clapping dies down, he immediately says, well, we can't guarantee anybody's actually going to honor that, though. So it's like the do not track thing. And I'm like, that's like a comedy bit. Like, that's the perfect setup and punchline right there. Everybody's thrilled. Then you immediately say, well, we can't guarantee everybody's going to listen to it. And this is the same kind of thing, is, as you said, if this is not, I mean, it was, I felt bad for him, because, he had to say it legally. But after everybody was so enthusiastic to immediately just pop the balloon and be like, nope, we're taking your toys away. It was just, man, I wrote perfect comedic timing, because it really was. But know-how, I agree. That's the same thing. If it's not something that anybody immediately understands, it's pointless. It's pointless. It has to be universal, like most things. If it's not a standard, or it's not adopted by everybody in a very clear way, it is essentially useless. This feels like something that legal said, put it in there, because otherwise people are going to complain. So they came up with this thing. I'm sure it's neat engineering-wise, next to useless anywhere else. And then they finished with what I think...
People talking about crypto, the really passionate people that talk about crypto, they're the ones that understand cryptology to an extent. Normal people, they don't know about crypto, and this is right there with that. Because again, it's looking at the cryptology and all of that crap. I just don't get it. They need to normalize it some kind of way.
I will tell you what my standard reply to people, because people know that I know tech stuff, and occasionally I will be asked, okay, can you explain why people are into crypto? And rather than even attempt it, because I couldn't muster an angstrom of enthusiasm about it, I simply say, do you find math sexy? If so, go read about it. Otherwise, don't bother, because nobody who doesn't love math cares.
Right.
It's an engineering solution. It's whatever. It's fine. If you want to invest in it, say goodbye to your money. Anyway. Whatever. And by the way, before anybody says, I don't want a 2-page explanation of why I'm a fool. Fine, I'm a fool. It's fine. I've been a fool this long and I'm still alive. I'll just keep being one. So they finished with Project Turntable, and this thing was wild. I will admit, this one, if it can work the way it was demoed, did you see or read anything about this one?
See,
This is the one where you could take a 2D image and it makes it 3D.
Makes
so
it 3D.
Draw
Yeah.
some,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
Now,
I want to say, isn't somebody else doing that already?
yeah, I think there's probably something else, but to have it as a built-in feature to Adobe is, if you know, even I, who barely ever touches Illustrator, even I looked at this and went, whoa, okay, maybe I'll open Illustrator once in a while now, because potentially that is extraordinary if they can make that work for most images. I would be very curious if I drew something original, what it would do to it. But even that could be fun. But even if it is basic, because I've had this where I've struggled sometimes with perspective on things where I try to angle something and I just cannot get it right.
Yeah.
And to be able to draw it and just turn it just enough to work for what I need, that's worth something. So if it can do that, that's a hell of a thing. But no, I'm pretty sure there are some other tools that do it. But since I'm already in the Adobe pool, I don't mind if they want to,
It's nice to
float
have
a
it in the
drink over to me.
package. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to have it in the package.
Yeah.
This looks good. I'm looking at the video right now. This looks good.
Again, we have to see, number one, if it ever actually comes out. I think this will. This feels like one that they will do. Sometimes they do these and you're like, yeah, that's never, like the Project Know-How. Do I ever really think we'll see that? I doubt it. But
well, I mean, and again, I swear this tech is already out there somewhere. And then even inside of Adobe's own product, After Effects, there's a similar tool in there. It's not as good as this, but at least we know, okay, yeah, this will probably happen for sure. I shouldn't even say probably. This will happen because they're already halfway there.
Yeah, no, and this feels like this is such a simple thing to understand and how beneficial it will be. Whereas some of the other ones, I think for some people it'll be tough. It's tougher to go, would I really use that? Some things are a little bit more specific, I guess is the way to say it. But this one feels like anybody who's doing anything would, even somebody like me who doesn't use a lot of Illustrator stuff, I could see myself using this in ways that are really important, even if I don't use it a lot. So I think that was a really good one to end with.
Project Turntable.
Yeah, Project Turntable. Yeah, that one. I'll say this: of all the stuff they showed, that of the sneaks, this is the one I most want to play with right away. I would really want to just push it and draw some weird stuff and see what it did. Because I enjoy tools that make me. That's what I mean about this different perspective thing. Even if it horrifically maimed whatever I drew, it might be neat looking. Because I like to do I do squiggle exercises where I just do a bunch of lines and then try to make it into something. I think that's a really beneficial, creative thing for visual artists, is just to make a mess and then try to form it. It's like looking at a cloud and seeing a sheep. It's like that for me. So something like this would be like that, where I'd make a really weird drawing and then rotate it and flip it over and see what it was,
Thank you for sharing that analogy. Interesting.
I don't know if anybody else does it, but I find it beneficial. I like to actually the what I think it's the best for is young children who want to get into art, is to understand that you don't want to try to. One of the things that I thought was the most harmful in terms of the way that some art teachers taught when I was younger is they negatively critiqued things that weren't flawless off the bat. So if you were doing a still life and you couldn't draw a vase correctly, they would say, no, you did it wrong. As opposed to saying, all right, well, if you're not going to draw it exactly like that, well, you got to make it interesting. Make something out of it. Change it. Or take a mistake. The best lessons I ever got as far as illustrating was a teacher who said, artists figure out how to fix the mistakes. You don't pretend it's not there. You don't start over. You work around it. And you still get something out of it. And that's where, like with young artists, or like kids, if they can't draw something, they get very frustrated because that's how children are. It's understandable. Whereas I'm like, no, don't get frustrated. make something out of it. Make a monster out of it. Make some kind of weird creature or whatever. Or a fairy that, has 3 eyes. So what? Not all fairies have 2 eyes. That's okay. They'll still take your teeth. They'll still leave $5. Go ahead. Do it. Whatever. Just don't look at them too closely because it might freak you out. But that's okay. Go ahead. 8 eyes, 10 eyes, whatever. And that's one of these type of things where it's like, okay, well, let me do something weird and rotate it and see, either it'll look like something out of The Exorcist, or I might go, that's interesting. That isn't what I was going for, but that's an interesting road to follow. And I think there's a lot of benefit in doing that. So,
That's interesting.
People with weird brains think weirdly. That's all. So that's a lot of these tools. I don't necessarily know that I'll ever use them the way they're supposed to be used, but I'll abuse them and see what they do, because that can be fun.
No,
Sometimes.
No person doing that.
No, that's true. That's true. So, yeah, this was a bit of a disappointing Max overall, outside of the inspiration stuff. I would still encourage anybody, even if you don't normally look at Mac stuff, or even if you don't have Adobe products, I still think watching the inspiration keynote, because it's on YouTube, so you don't have to have an Adobe account, nothing like that. You can watch it for free. Watch that no matter what. It's just, if nothing else, it will distill the best part of Max down. But even if you don't like Adobe and you're anti-Adobe, and I know those people are out there, that's fine. You don't have to like anything I like. You're still going to see creative people with very different life experiences who are standing on a stage talking to a room full of people and sharing their work with them, and doing it in a way that says, we're not perfect artists. We didn't come from an art background where we had every advantage, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of work, but and Iman specifically made a very good point that you don't hear enough of, which is, I think she said she takes a day off every 3 days, because she said, if you just work all the time, you're going to burn yourself right out. You'll get sick of it. You'll hate it. You'll make a job of it in the worst way. And honestly, your output's not going to be that great. And so you get a real nice, different variety of perspectives from people. And that stuff, I think every creator should experience, even if you can't get there. Just watch that. Skip the first keynote, skip the sneaks, that's fine. But watch the inspiration keynote. If nothing else, that's great. And I don't know that I have much else to say about Max now that I think about it. So, any other final thoughts?
No, I don't. Other than, I'm curious to hear what other feedback Adobe has received, or maybe they didn't receive it, have heard about Max there in Miami, and what's going to happen next.
I did this time, which I never have before. They did one of their big surveys that they do. And I don't know if everybody gets these at the same time, but I got one within the last week that was kind of what do you use the products for this, for that type of thing. I don't know if they just go out. I don't know if they do those in waves or whatever, but this was the first time that where there's an option where it says, okay, do you want to get surveys, blah, blah, blah. And there's an option there that says, do you want to come and meet in person if it makes sense? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I will. Maybe these people need to hear from me.
I've seen those. I don't think I've ever completed one though, but I've seen those.
I do every single one. I don't know why. Maybe it's an OCD thing, but I hate a survey that I don't complete.
With what do you call them? I don't have a problem with surveys, but I can't say that I've done any of these Adobe ones. I don't think I have.
Maybe foolishly, maybe not. Most of the time when I get surveys from a lot of things, I don't even bother. But there's certain companies that either have in the past demonstrated that they listen. Like Logitech's one, I've done surveys and they've actually done meetings with me. And I think when I've done those, they actually seem to listen. Maybe they're just nodding and faking it, but they're making an effort. Libsyn's another one where I did beta testing for stuff for them and all this stuff. And then they were very receptive because apparently I brought up something nobody else had thought about. I don't really know if that's true or if they said that to make me feel good. I don't know. And then Adobe's another one where I hope they're listening because my answers are specific. And so if they invite me to go, yeah, I'll go. And they might regret it immediately because I have done some of these meetings, like Zoom meetings, and you can
Yeah.
see the reaction that most people aren't like me because I'm like, all right, here, look, this is what you're doing wrong. Blah, 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 blah. I'm just like a maniac running through things, and you can kind of see them lean back a little bit, like I'm in the room, like pointing at them. But I try to
Slowly
be,
reaching for the hang up button.
not even slowly, but I try to always back it up by saying, I want your product to be better because I like using it. I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying, this is a weird thing to get wrong type of, I think I phrase it diplomatically, but I would love if Adobe actually had any interest. I met with them once about something, and the person I spoke to was very nice. I think it was a Zoom or GoToMeeting or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they seemed very receptive and that they were listening and making notes and stuff. So maybe they were just doodling, Mighty Mouse or something. I really don't know, but that's what I would do if I wasn't interested but wanted to look interested. I would pretend I was, oh yeah, and I'd just be like drawing Danger Mouse in the background. So I hope if they get a lot of feedback, I hope they listen to it. We'll know, I think, next year. The next one should tell us a lot, because if it keeps going this way, it's a bad sign. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm going to abandon Adobe or anything like that, but if they do another keynote like this one, I don't think
I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him.
I like Adobe. I mean, I do. I've used their products for a long time. I don't want to have
I
to
don't
learn
have
something else.
anything against those presenters, the Dacia and the other guy, and but it just didn't feel like they were speaking to me. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I would actually be curious. And I've never done any type of like age audit of any of our listeners. I just assume they're all my age, because that's just what I assume everybody is if you're listening to somebody, you're generally in their age group. So I don't know that we have. Actually, you know what? I do get younger people who pop onto my Twitch stream. Maybe I'll have any of you listened to the Adobe Max keynote, and then just listen for the crickets and see.
And they'd be like, say what, old man?
The who, what? Adobe, you have to pay for that? No, man, use this. It's a free tool, and it does this. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, we learned I'm too old. But if anybody is younger and saw this, or go watch it, like I said, it's on YouTube. You don't have to have an Adobe account or anything like that. Go watch it. And by all means, let me know, and I'll let Ant know too. I would be curious if this is something that actually, okay, honestly, if you're going to do it, this is what you should do. Watch the opening keynote and then watch the Inspirations one. And see which one appeals to you more. And I would bet money that almost anybody is going to come back and say, that second one is the one. Why isn't that their opening keynote? And it would be if I was running things. That'd be the opener. And then you could do the business stuff later. I'd open with those people saying, this is why Adobe is important to me. This is why I use this tool. This is what it lets me do.
That you're going to talk to those folks, but you can
Something.
fix your freaking opening presentation without giving me a lecture of terms of service, or because that's all they did.
Yeah.
They did everything but say legalese, bro. Here and by.
Despite that, I do think I'm going to try to get there next year if it's back in LA. As much as I don't,
I'd love it to be back in LA. I like my shot of being there.
Yeah. I knew I wasn't going to Miami because
I tried, bro, but then life happened. So no,
it does. Yeah. Well, this is great. I don't even care if Max is disappointing. I just like talking to you. So this is fun. And I will remind everybody that they can listen to your podcast. They can either listen to it or watch it live on YouTube. Go subscribe and hit the bell notification. That's what you're supposed to say, right? Hit the bell notification thing. And that way you're alerted. I'm pretty sure that's right. I know just enough. I think there's a bell. I think it's a cowbell. I think it's a regular bell, like a Liberty Bell, but uncracked. Click that thing. After you click the thing that has the word subscribe on it, hit the thumbs up. That's everything, I think. And go over to antpruitt.com, and you can buy prints from there. You can look at Ant's work. Follow him on Blue Sky, like another 2,000 people who don't say anything, and you could just repost things. I saw your little bit you were talking about Blue Sky. I get it. Yeah, it's. I have to admit I'm one of those people too. I don't say a lot on Blue Sky. I just like to boost other people, but I don't say much. So maybe I'm the problem.
But bro, they call these platforms what?
Yeah, I
Let me
know.
hear you
But
say it.
as social media, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What the hell is social about it? Nothing. Nothing's
All
been
right.
social about these platforms. That's why I stick
For
to
me,
Patreon.
well, and I don't disagree. I think Patreon is a far better tool for some people depending on what they want. I'll be honest, for me, what Twitter was and what Blue Sky
Uh huh.
is it's largely a I wouldn't call it a news feed, but it's a way for me to follow people who surface things for me to look at a lot of times. So I want to
Yeah.
follow
Content
artists.
consumption. That's fine.
Yeah. And that's
You
because I
know,
just want to find artists I like. But I honestly, some of
that's
the time
totally
too,
fine. But none of these joints are social anymore. None of them.
yeah.
I still use X because I still have a decent tribe on X and a
Well,
decent
that's a reason to
level
stay there.
of
That's good.
but and a decent level of engagement on X. I'll still use it here and there, but I'm most of my time is in Patreon because I'm trying to prove a point with, you know what, they're making a shit ton of money off of us over here in these platforms that are quote unquote social. They're not social, you know.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. I think it's a weird. Well, let's put it this way. Uh, Social media as a general platform is sort of weird to apply when people are so different in terms of what social even means to them. So it is almost a deemed
Good point.
enterprise,
Good point.
because my socialization, I often don't say anything because, to be honest, I don't really think most of what I have to say has any real value to most people. So that's why I just post a lot of
How
photoshopped
about you
images
learn how
because
to
I'm like,
love you some you?
well, it's not really even that. I just feel like a lot of the people that I follow, I don't know, it's a strange thing. It
No,
is a
I get
weird
it.
thing because
No, I get it. Yeah,
some people I just think are a lot smarter than me, and I'm like, I don't know that I have anything to add on top of that. So I'd rather just
exactly.
amplify what
Yeah,
they said, and
exactly.
or for the art thing, I just like to repost and say, this is beautiful work. Please look at this person,
Hmm.
because I understand how tough it is for creators to make it, and I'm in a very fortunate position where I don't have to depend on my creativity. I have a paycheck that's fine. So I'd rather have somebody who's really more dependent get that attention. I'd rather
Right.
help somebody else because I don't need the help right now. If that changes, I'll be the first one to say it. But right now, I'm okay. So I'd rather help somebody else. So that's why I don't really say anything. I just kind of go, hey, this is beautiful. Look at this person. Go support this person. Go help this person out. That type of thing.
Right.
It's a hippy dippy thing, I know. It's so anti New York.
No, I get where you're coming from on it, but I mean, it's just everybody's not like you, bro. There's a lot of people that are on these
Really?
platforms that they constantly run their mouth. You're like, how do you get
And,
anything done? Because you're talking the whole daggum time today. You
well,
know, so
that's all they're accomplishing, really.
they're social, but I bet their social media use is still just hitting like, like. They don't talk
No,
there.
I understand completely your point of view on it too. That which is, if I'm not getting a discussion going, if there's not a back and forth, then what is this? Why am I wasting my time?
Yeah.
What is the effort if I'm not getting anything back? So I completely, having seen where you use Blue Sky and Patreon, you're completely correct that the response and the activity is all on Patreon. I mean, it's
Yep.
90 to 95%. That's where I'm seeing it between the two. Blue Sky is
Yep.
basically next to nothing.
Yep.
Um, so
But I'm fine. I'm okay with that because those platforms can serve the purpose of potentially getting eyeballs to come over to the Patreon community.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that some person may see it next month. or 10 people may see it next month. I don't know. So that's why I said I'm probably just going to go into autopilot mode and just broadcast over there. Won't respond.
I gotta look. I gotta look at that thing that I've heard Leo talk about, like the post once, post everywhere thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you use that, or you just put the same thing everywhere?
Huh?
Do you don't use that tool, do you? You just kind of copy paste the same thing everywhere?
No, I use most of my automation is through Buffer.
Okay.
And I'll schedule my stuff out throughout the week. And I'll leave it. I'll set it and leave it. Because when I actually was trying to somewhat check notifications or whatever, a lot of times I had no idea what people were responding to me about. Because it was
automated. There is that problem too. Yeah,
because it was automated, and the only reason I went automated is because I saw this stuff starting to happen. It's all just a like button. Yeah.
Well, then I'll wrap up by saying patreon.com/Aunt Pruitt. Go there.
That's what I'm talking about. Now you get it.
See? My marketing instincts kick in really late and in the completely wrong spots, but they do kick in. So, yeah. Well, Aunt, listen, it was a blast talking to you, as it always is. And even when Max may not be the best all throughout, man, at least that inspiration saves it. So I would again say, go watch that inspiration keynote. If you are a creative person, believe in your creativity, make something. Do it. Even if only a few people see it, just do it. The world needs more creativity, not less. Do something.
Indeed.
You never know where it can get you. And I think on that note, AntPruitt.com, patreon.com/Aunt Pruitt. If you're not sick of my voice, you can go to ozonenightmare.com and you can listen to back catalogs of this show. And yeah, we'll hey, listen, if it works out,
nope.
Maybe this is a goal.
Nope, you're not done. You're not done.
Why? What am I not done with? What did I forget?
Your Patreon. You didn't mention your Patreon.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, we've got one too. Actually, here, I was smart in one way. If you'd like to support our show, all you got to do is go to supportourshow.com, and that has everything. What's that?
I love that link. I love.
Isn't it great? Can you believe I got that after I blew the other one and completely misspelled it?
I love that you got that, bro.
I'm still astonished. I've rechecked it at least a dozen times to make sure I didn't misspell it because I did the first time.
By far one of the funniest stories I heard you do.
I mean,
absolute gold. And I'm so happy for you on that. But yes, go to supportourshow.com and check out his Patreon. Please and thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have a goal that if we both are at max, we'll do a show for max. So.
Oh shit, yeah. If we both are there, I would. Most of the time when I go to stuff like that, I do have my kit with me because in the past, someone has wanted me to jump on a call, Twit or what have you, has wanted me to jump on a call. So I would have my kit with me. So, yeah.
So that's going to be the plan. It gives me something to aim for. So that's what we'll aim to do it. If it works out, that's what's going to happen. So that'd be wild. Yeah. Well, anyway, before I start speculating for another 20 minutes, and I'll just never shut up. Thank you again for being here. I'll have links, of course, to all of Mr. Pruitt's stuff and our stuff. And go watch that inspiration keynote. Stay creative. It's worth it. And that's it. Have a wonderful rest of whatever it is when you're listening to this. Thank you very much. Visit ozonenightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.